Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Friday, August 16th. We're on the European account for the Tavern Brawl. We had a little bit of snafu. Somehow my microphone didn't want to work. We have a 50 daily quest that, because I played one game with the microphone messed up, we made progress on, but it's still smarter, and frankly I need the gold to re-roll that. So 5 games any mode, 3 Tavern Brawls, 30 Shaman cards, all have to be done today. It is also important to look here at this and see when these Tombs of Terror are coming out. Theoretically, this being Thursday, it could have come out today. I also wouldn't have been surprised if it had changed to in about a week. I wouldn't be surprised if Tuesday it changes to in about a week or comes out completely. I don't suppose there's a great reason to do the Delarian heist.
The greatest criminal undertaking in the history of villainy.
There's so much grinding in this that, yeah, I need to get through Tavern Brawls, and I'll just need to play ranked to even have a chance to get up even a little bit in ranked. So let's hop into that. We had an interesting turn of events with video game news. Like Thursday, maybe Wednesday evening, there was quite an outflow of video game news. And then earlier today on Friday, nothing came out. So they are, I think, locking into Thursdays are the days that news comes out. If you want to release bad news, you release it at after 5 o'clock on a Friday always. If you want to release really good news that you think you can own the news cycle, you might release it on Monday or Tuesday morning. Typically Tuesday morning, because you want to have you want to have as much coverage as possible, and there's an assumption that if you release it right on Monday, people will just be catching up with any weekend news that may have happened. So we do have a decent amount of news that I would like to burn through. If I can keep the Linux configuration server talk to a minimal, I'm making decent progress. I've got it down to almost a point where I could give up on it if I wanted to, and it'll be fine. The ZFS RAID array, I was able to export it and then re-import it by the universally unique identification numbers, labels, and they're not really numbers, they have letters in them too. And so that helped me and allowed me to add the final hard drive that I had available to me into the RAID as hot spares. Sadly, the configuration really is set up in such a way that I don't think that there's ever a great way in which this could be replaced. And that's what it really comes down to. My only real hope, I suppose, is that the RAID array can hold on to itself. Just like the whole RAID array can just keep itself together and survive another 7 years or so, and that would be really nice. And then at that point there will be enough of an implementation where you can add hard drives to a RAID 3 array without it being without it requiring, in my instance, 76 other partitions being added to copy it, which, yeah, there should be a better way for all this to work, but it's not really working that way. I wonder. Yeah, there's definitely commands, definitely things that need to be implemented, and just aren't in the ZFS code. The same is true for ButterFS, though, and arguably the same would be true for anything else. So I have 2 spare hard drives, which is not bad. Set up, they're just very, very big hard drives. They're like 4 8-terabyte hard drives just sitting there going, as soon as some other hard drive fails, we've got these available, which will add some life, I guess. What needs to happen, and unfortunately it often is the case, it seems, that I'm losing or having the drives I'm having crash are the drives that specifically are not the drives that I'd like to see crash. The drives I'd like to see crash are the smallest of the small drives, and it seems like the medium drives are crashing instead. Alright.
There's little time.
Guess we'll end the turn there. Because if I could eliminate one of my smallest drives, which is half a terabyte, 512 gigs basically, and put a 4, let's face it, probably closer to 8 terabyte hard drive in there, then effectively I would have one hard drive that is using one portion of that, the 512 gigabyte portion of that, to specifically replace the part that was lost, and then all that other space would be more hot spares, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but eventually it starts to make sense, because if I can get rid of, I think I have 3 of the smallest ones. If I could get rid of 3 of the smallest ones, I think I could probably start growing the size and the least common denominator. Although that would be kind of hard to do, frankly, because I would have to probably replace, in a weird way, I'd probably have to replace a lot of partitions that are being used right now with partitions that are being used as hot spares, that are then at that point the new least common denominator of 1.5 terabytes. So it's this weird math where I need 3 half terabyte hard drives to fail so I can replace them. Ideally fail at different times so I can replace them individually. And once those 3 of the half terabyte hard drives are gone, I could then start to replace the almost all of the 76 terabyte hard drives partitions with, instead of being half terabyte partitions, they would be 1.5 terabyte partitions, which would change the it really wouldn't change the number, though. It'd still be 76. It would be a very long process. If it really just boils down to, this would be a crazy long process that almost certainly would fail just by mistyping the one wrong thing. Don't know if I'm gonna win here, so I'm just gonna play cards. Yeah. but theoretically, eventually, slowly, it would start to make sense. If anything, I guess I should start to think from that process and replace the hot spares, redo the hot spares, which I can, thank goodness, remove. And oddly, when I did convert it, the command to convert the folders to the UUID, the Universal Unique Identification Number, didn't do it for any of the hot spares, so it just immediately said all those are gone. And it seems like there's no way to convert it back, so yeah, that it doesn't seem like that really matters, but that is something to think about, I suppose. So theoretically, you should add probably the device location identifier, which would be under Linux /dev /sd SDA or SDB SDC, and then the partition number 1, 2, 3. You should probably add all of those back in as hot spares, so if anybody ever plugs in a new hard drive in any of the hot swap bays, it would be a very good. It would automatically replace anything that's failed. But that's kind of a good example of where, even if I'm just kind of rambling and nobody understands a word I'm saying, it's nice to talk things out, because it really hadn't occurred to me. Yeah, the hot swap spares shouldn't be the least common denominator. They shouldn't be half a terabyte. They should be the next step up. They should be 1.5 terabytes. Because I have the command auto expand enabled. As soon as all of the partitions can potentially be expanded to that level, then you're in a really good position. And it certainly never occurred to me that, while I was working at it in silence, that I would be well off to re-add what are effectively the same disks as hot spares by a different identifier. It'll be interesting to see what that would do. Hopefully, with every time I mess with it, the fear is that it could potentially screw it up. Like, ideally, what I need to do is spend a large amount of money to buy a 100 disk SAS extension server mount, which I'm sure would be really, really expensive. Something that would be I guess, either a physical RAID array, or something that would just act as an eternal SATA to add a lot more disks to it. Like, where I'm gonna get even 4 extra disks to go into the 100 disk RAID is unrealistic, certainly, but that would be the next step to expand it out. If I had 100 disk drives that I could plug in there, and I just put even 4 of the biggest of a reasonable size of 8 terabyte hard drives, I think there would be a big enough RAID to then just copy all the data over the course of a week or two, and at that point rebuild the RAID yet again. once I replace some drives. Although there is also a point to be made that these hard drives fail. They get used up to 100%. They don't turn into something that can be reused somewhere else. Not with my level of funding for this project, certainly. That's probably enough server talk. I'm still trying to get MineOS to work. I'm still trying to get the Calibre server to work. I think Apache as a music service is solid and still needed. Nextcloud I messed up, so I may have to reinstall that whole thing, which if I do that, that's going to be a nightmare. It was working, and then I tried to update it and it failed at that point.
Elements guide.
There's yeah. There are a few things that I'm doing differently. New software has been set up and changed, and so there's some hope there that things will work a little bit better. Still trying to get Universal Plug and Play to work. Seems like I've gotten the Windows sharing to work, but I haven't double checked to make sure that I can get my main PC to start backing up to it. I've got my cell phone through the Samba Windows sharing running. Is this guy gonna take a victory, or is he just toying with me? OpenPGP, which is an email encryption, that was a project I never actually got around to starting, that I wanted it to be an OpenPGP server. Turns out not really necessary anymore. You can enable OpenPGP, which is end-to-end encryption for emails, just through a Chrome and Firefox browser, which is interesting, to say the least. And K9 email and an Android app called just OpenPGP, again, I believe is what it's called. So with that, I'm actually doing something new instead of just redoing the same thing over and over again, and getting slightly better at doing something. Part of the problem of doing IT stuff, and I said this was going to be a short conversation, and it's not turned into that at all. Part of the problem of doing IT stuff, though, is it takes so long to do it once and figure out how to do it once. And if you aren't doing a factory line, production line type job, where it would make sense to build something and then have to rebuild it a week later, or build something and then have to do the same thing a week later. You really don't get a lot of practice to get really good at it. Plus you have in computers, unlike other jobs, the ability to script things, so if you can really make something like idiot proof and just automate it, you probably are better off just automating it. Whether or not you tell your boss that's what you did is a different story. So yeah, what do we want to kill? There you go. So yeah, there's not a lot of practice. I work on the server, get it to a point where it works good enough, and then don't really want to work on it for 3 or 4 years, and then it finally broke so bad that I was like, all right, everything has changed. The operating system is a new version. It's time to just format and reinstall, which is a thing that you had to do with Windows quite a lot too. Nowadays, it's usually not. You're usually not in a situation where you need to format and reinstall. But on occasion, on a rare occasion, that still does happen. Where you're in a bad position in Windows 10. You can pretty much never deny that somebody eventually is going to have to format and reinstall. Let's start talking about video game news. I clearly have a lot more work to do still that I want to do still. I did think about starting to play Torchwood. Yeah, Torchlight is the name of the game. I started to think about playing that yesterday, but yesterday also was the day that the plumber's inspector came, so there was a point there where I didn't have I was distracted and busy. In theory, I'm done now finally with the saga of installing a new water heater, which took like 30 weeks for something that really should have taken 1 day, maybe 2 with the inspection. 3 if you include the estimate. Now I'm down to finding an electrician who is willing to run the security wires for me, because I don't know, crawl through a roof. I did realize I need a ceiling fan change too. It'll be interesting. I want to look up and see where we are with remote technology on ceiling fans, because when you have a ceiling fan and it has a light in it and it's providing the general cooling for the room and the light for the room, it's really convenient to have a it's really convenient to have a
I curse them all.
Yeah. It's what I was trying to say is it's convenient to have a remote for a ceiling fan. It just is. In a bedroom, particularly, you don't want to get in bed and then realize now I have to stand up and either pull a chain on a ceiling fan to turn off a light, or pull a chain to adjust the ceiling fan. Particularly, I find at times in the middle of the night it will get too hot or too cold, and I'll want to adjust the speed on the ceiling fan for comfort. And in the past, that's just been done with very cheap remotes that just connect to a receiver, and there's been no integration in that. It's been a few years now, though. There really should be some either like Zigbee Z-Wave style integration. I know Ecobee has this new light switch that theoretically could do that, but maybe not, depending on how many wires it actually connects to. There are a lot of ceiling fans in at least the United States that are wired to single switches for the 2 functions, and only the really older ones have 2 wires going to the switch, where there would be 2 switches, one to control the light and one to control the fan. So if you're just replacing a light switch with like the Ecobee light switch, then that's not gonna be as helpful as as it would be normally. But the Ecobee thing is quite cool because it has an Amazon Alexa in it, and a speaker in it, and it has like a nightlight mode, and it has the ability to be controlled and scheduled. But you're also paying $80 for what otherwise would be a $5 at most light switch for all that functionality. But that would probably be the only solution if you're trying to get a more smart house style connection to a ceiling fan. So unless there's something else, so I'm gonna have to do some research and find out if there's something else. If there isn't, that's fine too. There really isn't a terrible problem with having a proprietary remote that controls a ceiling fan and a light. But what I found when I installed a bunch of them in my house is that there was a lot of interference because there's basically only 2 brands that makes them. So the 2 brands often would just randomly select the same frequency, and that would potentially cause me to press the button to turn on the light, and it would turn on the light in 2 different rooms, which is not something you really would want in most cases. Imagine in the middle of the night somebody accidentally turning on somebody else's bedroom. It's like,
now how about
or I could go really cheap and simply just not put any kind of wireless thing in it and just have a fan like normal. The truth is these connections are pretty aftermarket. You really don't need an electrician to install a ceiling fan if you even have half a mind. Part of my concern and my fear is I'm going to take out this ceiling fan and find that it is just full of insects, because the reason it needs to be replaced in the first place is that while I was in the room working on my server with the fan, it made a sound like it was getting fried or short-circuiting, and then the blades stopped spinning, and then they, after a minute or two, started spinning again. So my fear is that an insect of some kind from the ceiling crawled into the wiring, touched 2 wires, got electrocuted, got fried into nothing, which is certainly not going to be good for the circuitry. It probably isn't terrible, but it's definitely not good, and the whole fan is just old. It's the oldest one in the house. I pretty much replaced all the others in the house with something that was more reasonable, more modern. Ceiling fan technology hasn't changed that much, but motor technology has improved a little bit. And there are reasons why you just want to replace old electronics after a while. Now we're supposed to be getting victories, but we really haven't fixed that. Is there anything else ridiculous or stupid I needed to talk about? Twitter went back to being white after I personalized it to be blue, like Steam's website. Quite frankly, being white is probably better. It somehow subconsciously makes the news articles and the posts on Twitter feel a little bit more important and news-like, and a little bit less just menial. I was definitely having this feeling as I was scrolling down with it being blue, like, oh, I don't really need to read this article. It's not important. I'll just skip or skim. So it was just not grabbing my attention anyways. But I didn't change those settings back, so they just reset themselves. I'm also still having problems with Twitter of it feeling like it's not really showing me everything in order. But we'll have to live with what it is. Okay. That's one. And I guess we don't have to play after this game. If we can play all the shaman cards and get a victory, I guess we won't have to play a shaman anymore if I, for instance, prefer to play as hunter. Next let's start talking about the games on Steam. We have a game here called Robot Vacuum Simulator 10. This is a low effort asset flip game where you're playing as a robot vacuum. I don't think this concept could ever really turn itself into much of a game. What you'd have to do, in my mind, is give the robot vacuum a lot of personality, and that's probably going to be done by animating it like it has AI, like it's a Wall-E. Is Wall-E the name of the robot in that Disney movie? I don't think it is. Wall-E and Eve? No. This game is discounted to $4.45 in English for full audio. Yeah, you'd have to give the robot a lot of personality. You'd have to give it an enemy. You'd have to really think about like how the game Glover turned 2 gloves from a magician into slight personalities by having one of the gloves that you play as be the good guy and the other gloves being a bad guy, and giving them faces, giving them eyes, probably animating it in some portion. I want to immediately jump to saying if you were going to make a robot vacuum game that you'd have to make it very anime looking, but it probably wouldn't hurt too much if you did. Of course, if you went too anime with it, you would replace the vacuum completely with a cat girl in a maid outfit pushing a regular vacuum. But still, it's a lot of imagination and creativity that you would need to have a story around this and a concept and gameplay around this, and you just don't have that. Instead, you just kind of have an asset flip, low effort concept. And like so many asset flips, they just get better and better looking every day. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Metronics Lab, which looks like some MS Paint platforming puzzle type game. It doesn't look pretty good, and you have like a solid blue background, which definitely clashes on the blue backgrounds of Steam. So this looks like a student project, frankly. This would be a rather good student project. I think this would deserve an A if you second year, third year programmer in college and you have no animation ability. If a teacher can learn the grade on how the game actually plays versus the animation. But it's certainly not a game that should be on Steam. Like $2.99. Apparently they're saying it's relative to the game Knights, which I have. It's English and Portuguese Brazil. I've heard the accusation, I don't know how true it is, that Brazilian people spend a lot of time on the internet and are really good at the internet, so they promote a lot of their own content. That might be the case. It certainly would explain to me why there's so many Brazilian speaking, Brazilian language supported games that come out on Steam, considering the population there. I don't know what the best comparison would be to that, though, because when you're talking non-English speaking countries by wealth, population, prosperity, the ones most likely to make video games and be able to make video games Brazil might be right under China and Russia. It might really be a case of it goes all the West that speaks English combined, and then Japan, and then China, or maybe Japan, then Korea, then China, and then Russia, and then it might be Brazil at that point, or Spain. Although I think half of the Spanish language games are actually just mislabeled. Mexico itself is not prosperous enough yet to have a major video game scene. So the thing that would argue against that idea, though, would be I never hear any stories of any developers, any game creators. There seems to be exactly 0 AAA developers or games that are created by a Portuguese, Brazilian company. I can't think of a single one. Maybe in general, I could be generous and say I've maybe heard of one company make a game there like that. So then that flies in the face of just how many games, particularly low effort asset flip games, that come out on Steam that support that language. There's an inconsistency there. Let's see. Well, I've forgotten what recruit means. Alright.
Who shall be next to taste my blade?
Well, now everybody's gonna die. Some potentially great news, as YouTube is also on the verge of being sued by a group, I believe, of LGBTQ streamers. I have not been following or gotten the full details on that lawsuit, but it is interesting, to say the least, that they are getting sued by a group that many would argue they spent extra effort in giving support and promotion to.
Once upon a time.
It would make a lot more sense if YouTube was getting sued by conspiracy theorists or independent news reporters, or people that claim to be independent news reporters, or just gamers in general on YouTube. Frankly, we could all form a very, very large coalition of the willing to sue YouTube for their manipulation of the markets, to say the least, by encouraging and building themselves up to be the only business in town, and then changing the rules on people so that they're no longer able to monetize, and that it is important to remember there that the reason that they succeeded in the first place is because they were offering to pay and monetize people when the competition was not. So very monopolistic actions were taken by YouTube. But the good news here in this creator blog, they have updated the manual claiming content ID claiming policies. Susan Wojcicki put out a letter. Blah 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 blah. Let's just skip down to the things. Geez, do you really need to be this long-winded? I've never seen them be this long-winded in the past. Wow, they don't even break it down. Alright. And Susan's, she said, improvement experience, the copyright are connected, blah 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 blah.
My pack will hunt you down.
Blah 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 blah. First paragraph, nothing. We're announcing additional changes to our manual claiming policies intended to improve the fee fairness of the creator ecosystem while still respecting copyright owners' right to prevent unlicensed content on use of their content. Let's see. We still need to play some Shaman cards, so we'll play one more game. Alright, so next paragraph here. And this is exact opposite of what this is being spun as. Including someone else's content, regardless of how short the clip is, means the video still can be claimed, and copyright owners will still be able to prevent monetization or block the video from being viewed. However, going forward, our policies forbid copyright owners from using the manual claiming tool to monetize creators' videos with very short or unintentional use of music. And that's the big change in a very long way. So what they're trying to do here, and I don't know why YouTube in particular is fighting copyright owners fight for them, which this is basically like Warner Brothers, Universal Music Group, UMG, Sony, Viacom, things like that. Some of the worst offenders there in claiming copyright on things that are clearly fair use. The only thing they have changed here, and it's a tiny change that they tried to make something much bigger of, is that people can't manually claim very short or unintentional uses of music. And maybe this is the first step, because unintentional use of music is a broad definition that I feel like people could certainly see that concept expanded out really far. Very short is also a roughly broad description. There have been lawsuits already that said that's not copyright infringement at all. Not even that fair use is a defense towards the copyright being infringed. It's just not copyright infringement. And it was probably that lawsuit that just made its way through their lawyers' offices to make them finally change their ways. The main problem here is I don't think many people are getting automatically claimed, manually claimed. I think most people are getting automatically claimed. So unless there is a corresponding thing that is happening here where the automatic claiming service has also been changed so that very short uses and unintentional uses of music are no longer mentioned or detected, it really doesn't matter that much. Does this have anything to do with 2K DMCAing all of that YouTuber's channel, basically over 100 DMCAs, and trying to destroy his channel, which it seems like they probably succeeded at. 2K doing that for Borderlands 3. Doubt it. I seriously doubt it, because the Content ID system is an extra legal process that, frankly, YouTube shouldn't have at all. I think it would probably be at a certain point smarter just to say, screw it, we're getting rid of Content ID in total, and you can just file DMCA forms and we'll just ignore them.
How much is this worth to you?
That probably wouldn't be the right way to go, but it might be the way that it has to go. So yeah, this really is a small change that's a step in the right direction. Probably more of a PR move than anything else. If we go further, the next sentence here says, this, I can't select it. This change only impacts claims made with the manual claiming tool where the rights holder is actively reviewing the video. Claiming created by the Content ID match system, which are the vast majority, are not impacted by this policy. Without the option to monetize, some copyright owners may choose to leave very short or unintentional users unclaimed. Others may choose to prevent monetization by any party, and some may choose to apply a block policy. So this really only affects if somebody's stealing your money versus somebody instead stopping you from profiting. And let's face it, these corporations probably are making what is pennies to them when they file a claim.
There is little time.
Jeez, I don't want that. Yeah. So most companies with manual claims would probably be perfectly fine to just block and prevent monetization. There's a whole paragraph here talking about best ways to avoid these issues is to not use unlicensed content in your videos. Frankly, that is a lie, because at this point, even if you do have the license to it, there are so many people that claim they have the ownership or a sample for that anyways, that you can't succeed even if you are trying to be honest and have the license. They're saying use the YouTube audio library for audio, which so far people who've used the YouTube audio library software seem to have never been claimed. And at the very beginning, and of course, if you feel like it qualifies for the exception to the copyright like fair use, be sure to understand what that means and how the dispute process works before uploading your video. They continue on. Enforcement of these new policies will apply to all new manual claims beginning in mid-September, providing adequate time for copyright owners to adapt. Once we start enforcement, copyright owners who reportedly fail to adhere to these policies will have their access to manual claiming suspended. So perhaps what this solves is an issue that this is an issue where this has happened. One very specific person has been making a lot of manual claims, or a small specific group has been making a lot of manual claims, and they're trying to get rid of them by changing the rules. Honestly, the manual claim system on YouTube is something that could be removed completely. It's redundant. It is so redundant. Make them file an actual DMCA so you can actually sue them in court and counter notify, or make them use the automated system. If their automated manual match is not if YouTube's manual match is not matching the audio or the video to the content that's allegedly copyrighted, then that's because it's not the same content. And allowing somebody to say, oh yes, it is the same content and we own that, is ridiculous. It's burdensome. It's stupid. And because it's an extra legal thing anyways, there's no reason that there should be a manual claim system at all. And ideally, that would be the better statement, is that it would be way better if they had just said, we're getting rid of the manual claiming system going forward, all people must file a DMCA. We're also changing our rules on DMCA strikes, so it's not 3 strikes and you're out inherently. So here's the tweet. That was a really long paragraph that was linked to. Learn more here. Based on lots of feedbacks, we updated our manual claiming policy today. And the team YouTube said, a new policy preventing copyright owners from making money on manual claims for short song clips, example 5 seconds long. I think 30 seconds might even be considered a short song clip, or unintentional audio, for example, music passing from passing cars. Claimants can still block monetization or the video itself, but timestamps help you edit out the claim. And alright, that says the same thing in a lot shorter of a time, so I'm not really sure why they felt the need to stretch it out into an entire letter, but they did, and certainly that ended up causing me to waste a lot of time. So let's move on. Next we have a game on Steam called Bomboozle, which looks like a Windows 95 game. Is there something here that would make me want to really play this? What is this company called? I cannot read that. It looks like it says Microsoft, but I don't think that's Microsoft. Mirrorsoft. Interesting. Alright, well. Now I've got to get the size back down to where it was. There we go. Yeah, Bomboozle is $4.54 discounted English only. Definitely not worth that price. If this was a really old game that had some fandom, maybe then there would make some sense.
Great idea. Great idea.
Let's see.
Bend to my will.
I can't play anything else. I could kill this guy if I want to, but that's pretty much it. So, yep, nothing interesting there. Gamatsu has an article, 2D fighting game collection Breakers collection has been announced for consoles and PCs. It's due out 2020. I don't know what Breakers is though. Has there been a Breakers fighting series that I haven't heard of? Alright, we've got some fighters that look pretty generic and not very well animated. The thing here is, I probably have seen a fighting game that looks something like this, but I'm not 100% sure this isn't just somebody like animating something that looks like that. I guess Breakers Revenge, like Breakers is a 2D fighting game released on December 17th, 1996 for the Neo Geo in arcades in Japan. Ah, that explains it. Any of these Neo Geo fighting games, a lot of them very rarely came out at all in the West, or if they did, they were in one Neo Geo cabinet within a couple hundred square miles of the next one. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Kling has secured $22.3 million in funding for the Spatial OS powered MMO Seed. What's interesting here is this is the only story I have seen with anybody actually sticking with Spatial OS and succeeding by using Spatial OS in the last 6 months or so. It's kind of like the opposite story. Now this is an MMO, so it's not a game I have any interest in or will ever play, but
I'm late.
Great idea.
but it's not my inherent desire. I really don't care one way or other to see Spatial OS fail. A new IDE programming language, a new support level to make games, something to compete with Unity and Unreal, is not a terrible thought. It really isn't. Particularly as we're seeing that far too many people are using the Unreal Engine right now, and that has given way too much power to Epic Games to allow them to then turn around and create the Epic Game Store. So the Epic Game Store potentially could have been prevented had just half of the video game industry used the Crysis engine instead of the Unreal Engine or some other engine. And don't get me wrong, a lot of them tried and failed, but there just wasn't anything anywhere as good as the Unreal Engine. Right. I'm trying to really win here now and get this victory. Gamatsu has an article, River City Girls for the PS4 and Switch will have a limited physical run edition that you can pre-order open on August 30th. I'm a little surprised that this is getting a limited run physical edition. That certainly seems to be the growing trend for niche, lesser likely to be successful games, and it certainly makes some sense. Limited run, being a publisher, has figured out a strategy that seems like it's working pretty well. Inherently, I think everything is moving towards being a limited run in general concept, because it is not that many people, as there used to be at least, buying games in physical versions. And like River City Girls is a great example of a game that already is for a niche audience, so there aren't going to be a lot of people that would buy River City Girls off the shelf at a GameStop if they had no idea what it was. Moving on, GameSwitch has an article, get a job, be a senior producer for Cold Iron Studios. That's in San Jose, California, if you're interested. Copy a random beast in your hands. Do I have a random beast in my hands? Nope. I do not. I don't know the right order to play here, so I'm just going to end the turn. Next we have a game called The Last Night on Steam. Let's see. Is this a actual game or is this a Roblox clone? There's a lot of fading out and fading in, which is definitely a strategy to hide things. Although it could just be somebody who's taking way too much of an artistic vision. I think they're trying to hide things. So it's super dark, super faded throughout this. So I can't really see anything from the video, where all the screenshots are bright. I feel like this is not good. It's 59 cents discounted. It's English and Russian. Yeah, I think this is just a slightly more polished, low effort game. Russian game. I won't call it a Russian troll game, but game nonetheless. This or this? Or this?
Hunt alone.
There we go. Next we have a game on Steam called NVIDIA, which probably is a low-effort RPG Maker troll game, if I was to guess. Yep. That's exactly what it is. It's $2.99 English only. It doesn't deserve any more time than that. Yeah, this is a troll game, something that doesn't need to be on Steam. Steam has really dropped the ball, frankly, on the is it straight up trolling idea. Like, they really have not embraced labeling anything by that label, even when there are clearly things that deserve to be under that label. Oh man, I screwed up there. So let's pretend like we didn't screw up there. Next, Game of Sutra has a blog here, how enemy AI works in Dicey Dungeons. This is pretty much just an advertisement for Dicey Dungeons, in case anybody is interested. This might be a slightly interesting idea if you're interested in programming a game, but if you're not, that's not going to do anything for anybody. Can we save this?
The eternal hunt has begun.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Bears, Vodka, and Balaka? Balaka? I don't even know what that is. I think it's supposed to be like either baklava or maybe there's a gun that's balaka. Oddly, this is an asset flip first-person shooter game that actually has more polish than it deserves. Early access $1.99. Again, a troll game though. I mean, I don't know how you don't call this a troll game. So, what does straight up trolling mean to Valve? Honestly, what does that mean to you if what you see never seems to justify that?
So many viewers.
Yeah, I did say we had more games come out. I'm not sure that means any of them are going to be anything good. Next we have a game called Brewer, and I've been watching a lot of Bar Rescue lately, so I'm almost slightly interested in this, but looking at it, it does seem like this is a pizza sim, pizza management sim style game as a brewer. Which I don't know how you get from being a small town, a small independent brewer to being a large enough brewer that you would have a factory brewing beer. $3.59 discounted, English and Russian. It's not a terrible logo, thumbnail. There's actually some nice animation and thought put into that, but the game itself looks incredibly boring and pointless. Right.
I have lethal.
There we go. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know how you would really go from I'm making 2-3 kegs in the back of a house or a barn to I've figured out how to make a considerable amount of alcohol. I think it, like most businesses, it kind of boils down to let's play as mage. How much money do you have? Bar Rescue said it took like $200,000 to start a new bar on average, and that's probably a couple years old. So I wouldn't imagine if it's even more than that now. Yeah, I imagine if you had $200,000 from some business loan, you could buy very large industrial vats and make very large batches of some kind of beer. But I think you also would have to have the kind of agreements with people to get whatever your sugar and yeast is from. You're going to have somebody that sources that out in bulk to you, and somebody that sources out the barley and the hops to you. So you're going to have major connections with major farming locations to be a major brewer, and I don't think that works particularly well for anybody, because while some areas are keenly aware and excited by independent breweries and IPA beer drafts, most people that drink beer are just drinking it to be cheap and are perfectly fine in the United States, at least, particularly in the United States, to drink Bud Light. Perhaps being an independent brewer in Europe would be a lot more successful, or in some other country would be a lot more successful. But yeah. Moving on, Gamer Sutra has an article. Epic Games opens a new Cologne studio with Factor 5 founders. I've never heard of a game called Factor 5.
It's time for a lot of blood.
It'll be led by the founders of the Star Wars Rogue Squadron and Turrican developer Factor 5. Okay. Factor 5 is the name of the game. Star Wars Rogue Squadron, an old game, so I mean, I don't know what you can really take from that at this point. As the developers who are famous for making old games get older and older, their education and experience becomes less and less relevant. So I wouldn't be surprised one bit if a lot of these companies, and it certainly seems like that's the case, a lot of these companies have people who at one time made something great, but nowadays really have no chance of making anything good. And if there was anybody that honestly had a good chance of that, particularly a Western developer, it would be Cliff Bleszinski, Cliffy B, and his last effort and attempt at making a new game and selling something failed miserably, and he swore to never get into video games again. And we'll see if that's true or not. I guess some of the Japanese developers have managed to succeed there. Kojima, we're all hoping and assuming with Death Stranding will do a good job, and the creator of Castlevania with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night seems to have done a good job. But we're not seeing that. We haven't seen a Westerner really succeed at doing that lately. I'm hoping Ben Brode, the face for Hearthstone, does a good job with his new company, Second Dinner. But also, I would say Ben Brode probably doesn't fall under the category of somebody that would be under consideration for being somebody that was known for developing something when they were younger. Ben Brode, I think, is pretty new to the video game industry. Moving on, Gamer Sutra has an article. Bloodborne and Mass Effect 3 composer has formed a new audio production company. So the Chris Valesco. What does that really mean? Not too much, frankly. It's just like, I imagine there wasn't a ton of in-house music composers in the video game industry in the first place, so I wouldn't be surprised if he would have always been pretty well available to work on any game that anybody wanted to hire him from. It seems like they've got some talent joining this group also. There's a composer, Jose Veron, formerly of Guerrilla Games audio lead, Rodney Gates, and the Shadow of the Tomb Raider voice director Rob King, and business developer manager Koyo Sonae, who managed the talent on a number of big name projects including Red Dead Redemption 2 and Devil May Cry 5. So this new company called the Audio Hive, it'll come down to, do people really want to work with them, or will they simply be very quickly replaced with somebody else? I wouldn't be surprised if they quickly became replaced with somebody else. Alright, we have 6. That would get me back up to 30.
Reporting for duty.
Let's see. What am I? So, 10 hours ago, as a bit of news here, Epic Games has said, update due to an additional technical limitations found while investigating these concerns, we've determined that we are unable to support cloud saves for Hyperlight Drifter at this time. We apologize for the inconvenience. So, this started with them saying we're going to temporarily suspend cloud saves for Hyperlight Drifter, and now it's saying that we're never turning them back on, which is certainly not a level of customer service, particularly when a game was sold to have such a feature. 20 hours ago, in between those that issue, we have another update that says purchases and website issue have been resolved. Thanks for your patience. So they had 2 issues going on top of the same thing, or at least what seems like very separate issues happening at the same time. That does not feel like a good product as a web store.
There they are.
Just keep doing that. Yeah, the one problem starts. We are currently investigating an issue where folks are unable to make purchases on the Epic Games Store, and also aware of the intermittent issues on the website. And then earlier they said, update, we expect to have a fix available that will allow us to re-enable cloud saves for the Hyperlight Drifter tomorrow. So they promised the ability to re-enable it, and they failed to deliver on that promise. Instead, they reneged on that promise. Which, like, try not to be opinionated too much here, but it does not look good. And there's several other tweets that did also talk about it. And then beyond all that mess, you have an announcement. This is the thing that people should have been excited about. They are strengthening their integration with the Humble Bundle store, so that it has keyless integration. This is scary for me in particular, because this might very well mean that little to no games will come with Steam keys if you buy them on the Humble Store going forward. It has yet to become that way, but it is certainly a concern that it might get that way. And so if that does turn to that case, then I'm definitely going to stop promoting the Humble Bundle Store as a place that's worthwhile to look at. Even if you are still supporting charity,
Put your faith in the
I no longer have interest, thus I no longer have a reason to waste my time looking at them at the end of every stream.
holy light.
If it is just all going to end up on the Epic Store. I have negative interest, not even zero interest. I have a negative amount of interest in trying to rebuild or have a collection of games on the Humble Store. Not one bit. Yeah. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here for the PS4, PS Vita, and Switch. A game called Kaleidoscope of the Phantom Prison launches November 28th in Japan. It's a new visual novel from Ryo Kishi 07. Looks like a visual novel to me, definitely. I don't know what else you can really say here without reading the article too much. So maybe we'll start to see some new announcements of new visual novels. I wouldn't be surprised if we're gonna start moving into more of a active season once we approach the holiday seasons, the mini holiday seasons of October and November and December.
Put your faith in the light.
Next we have a game on Steam here called Overpass, which seems like it's a infinite runner where you're looking upward and seeing different colors or beats that you're supposed to press a button. Frankly, this seems like it's a slightly more artistic musical style game, but visually this looks like it's just horrible. I hate this perspective in this angle. Like, I don't want to have a feeling like I need to tilt my head upward, which is exactly what this makes me feel like, and get a crick in my neck. This is $13.49 discounted, whole bunch of languages. No real concept around here that makes a lot of sense for a rhythm game. Like, let's just have everything at an awkward angle, and every time you see a white dot, press a button. That's super simplistic and pretty dumb. What do we need to do, by the way, on daily quests here? We need to get a Tavern Brawl victory, really. Other victories I can kind of get anywhere else. This is the problem in a nutshell with Win 3 Tavern Brawls, is they always suck. Tavern Brawls always suck. Alright, next we have a game on Steam called Zeus Begins. This looks like it's probably not animated quite enough for what I would want as a beat 'em up game. As a concept, this actually is something that I haven't seen before. Playing as a young Zeus beating up a bunch of demigods. I don't get why you would put a shoot 'em up section in here. That seems awkward. Of course, I guess God of War as a beat 'em up game has been done before and done a lot better. So when you realize, wait a minute, God of War exists and it is the Greek pantheon fighting, then that makes a lot more sense.
Uther versus
Yeah.
Valera.
So this game fails to make me want to play it. It reminds me that God of War exists, and if those old games were ever ported to PC, I'd be kind of happy with playing them. $8.99 discounted, which is way too expensive. English only. This animation looks terrible. This animation looks terrible. Of course, I would be in a bit of an awkward position playing the old God of War games, because there's a whole bunch of them for both the PlayStations and the Vitas and PSP. So if you were trying to play the entire collection, if Sony was to re-release all of that on PC, it would be a very long series. It would be a very drawn-out series. You would be playing some really old games, doing a lot of beating up actions, and then inherently you would have to address that this is a hyper-violent series that is now in 2019 not really in line with the tone of most games, for better or for worse in that case, and because of that you're going to run into issues, to say the least, of it feeling old and dated, and then as a YouTuber I then would have to think about how could I play all of the old God of War games without it becoming not family friendly, and that would be kind of hard to do too, because they did definitely revel in the occasional historically accurate topless or semi-topless Greek lady. So, and certainly I don't see a reason why Sony would get desperate enough to put out all of the old God of War games on PC while they're trying to push towards the new Dad of War, the God of War reboot. Like, the only thing I could imagine, and this would be insanity, frankly, is if somehow God of War, the reboot, in the fact that it succeeded very well, somehow got decided that it didn't succeed well enough, and that they weren't going to make a God of War 2 for the reboot, and that they weren't going to continue the story down that line, then maybe after 5 years or so you might get desperate enough to bring back the old games. But that's about the only time I could even begin to think that that would be a move they'd want to do. If I wanted to play the old God of War games, I guess I could do it through emulation. That's easy enough. But then there's really no reason to play a game and cover a game if you can't purchase it legitimately and get it on Steam or something. What I would have suggested is if they had planned on doing the new God of War reboot, and this is the same thing for Tomb Raider too, is they should have re-released the original games in one large collection and gotten the hype up a couple years before the reboot happened. And Tomb Raider kind of did some of that, but not completely. So best case scenario is they make a sequel and then a third game to finish a trilogy in the God of War series, and then they bring back the old games. Frankly, I think the remaster would be due for the old games if you could just tell the same story, have the same puzzles, but speed up the grinding parts. That would be greatly appreciated.
Reporting for duty. To battle.
But that would probably be too much work for him too. Frankly, they could also just make a boss rush game where you fight all the previous bosses of the God of War series. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Another Dawn, which looks like it is a survival game, probably an asset flip game.
I wonder.
Maybe I should be a little bit generous and put this on the follow list, but when you look at this enemy model, that looks pretty bad. We're seeing a lot of still images of what could easily be pre-made assets. A lot of just wandering, lack of polish in general. Yeah, this doesn't look like a game I really want to play. Early access, $13.49, a whole bunch of languages, 8 achievements. No, this game just does not inspire confidence. Oops.
The battle! The battle!
I could have won right then. Had I just attacked, I could have won right then. Well, while this guy is playing, we have a game on Steam called Lichtspear Double Spear Edition. This seems like it's attempting to look like a real game, but it seems like what you're doing is just standing in one place throwing spears, which makes it effectively a tower defense game with just a weird visual aesthetic on it. And yeah, I don't think I want to play a game like that. $7.99 discounted, English and a bunch of languages. Yep. Not quite interesting enough a game, but I do have to applaud an attempt here to have a visual aesthetic and a feel to it. It doesn't feel like it's just a low effort spear throwing game. There you go. So 3 Tavern Brawls done. That leaves me with 1 daily quest where I need to get 2 more things done. Let's go ahead and switch over. I suppose we might as well just go in circles here and move over to the Asian account. We haven't pinned to the Americas account at all, but we'll just go in a loop. And frankly, I see the beginning of the end of the stream just now, and if I want to burn through all this news, I think again I'll just have to play off screen much like I did Wednesday. Just had to play for a couple extra hours to get those daily quests done. Alright, so here's the deal. We have a 60 here with Rogue. We have a 50 here with Rogue, a 60 here with 3 victors with Rogue, and we have win 3 Tavern Brawls. I don't want to play 3 Tavern Brawls with Rogue, so I'm going to re-roll that, and then that'll be Druid. So all I have to do now, I've lucked out. Druid, Druid, Druid. 3 victories with Druid, I'll get all 3 of the daily quests done. This is the reason why it does not make sense to do the daily quest every day, is because you will have no overlap and you will actually be tripling the amount of work you potentially have to do. It also goes to show that if they just had a more reasonable number of daily quests you could stack on top of each other, to the point where if you had 5 instead of 3, or 7 instead of 3, then you would definitely be in a better position. 7 would be the perfect amount, frankly. And heck, if they gave you 8, that would be nice too, but 7 is all you really need. Because once you're at that level, you can play the game once a week and spend a much more reasonable amount of time, in my opinion, playing Hearthstone, and stick to Hearthstone instead of burning out on Hearthstone. What I don't think people get here is just how much burnout has happened on Hearthstone. How many people have left the game because it was so demanding and consuming of your time, consuming of your effort. Where if this game had just been a little bit nicer to the players, people would have still played it. I'm still playing years later Clash Royale because, in part, it allows me to kind of ignore itself if I want to. I really don't have to play it every day if I don't want to play it every day. There we go.
Got one. Got one.
Job's done.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Turbo Plane, which is just a low-effort game where you're flying in an airplane down. It's Flappy Bird just with verticality. It's animated terribly. It's 99 cents, no discount, English only. 10 achievements with numbers, so it's an achievement game. Right. I have 5 here. If I play this, that'd be 1 extra. So I'm just gonna do this. Let's see. Why do I have Bethesda's Twitter feed? Bethesda had a thing where working on a more permanent fix to further reduce the visibility of the optional login. We do not have an estimated release yet, but we'll let you know as soon as we can. Thanks for the feedback. So this is the follow-up of the forced Bethesda.net login for the re-releases of Doom 1, Doom 2, and Doom 3 BFG for not a good reason. They put out a patched version for the re-releases of Doom 1 and Doom 2, which now adds an option to skip the Bethesda.net login and removes the disconnect notification during gameplay. But it's not. It doesn't seem like it's even a polished, finished patch, really. It's definitely one of those stories where you have to come down to it and ask yourself, was this really intentional, or was this a accident? They claim it's an accident. Most people are suspicious that it was intentional to try to force as many people as possible into making a Bethesda.net account. In the end, re-releasing Doom 1 and Doom 2 with that option and putting any programming effort into it was a waste of resources and a bad business decision in general. This is good. Like 2 more of those, and we're done with the Asian account. Let's see. Game Sutra has an article. The Super Hot team aims to support weird but small but smart developers with a new indie fund. It's a little interesting that Super Hot has set up the Super Hot Presents Fund because, frankly, the success that the developers of Super Hot had, all of that money really should be going towards the development of their next game, unless this is sneakily a way of them saying, actually, we don't have an idea for the next game, so let's just give the money to somebody else and become a publisher, which is basically how all publishers become publishers, is that they recognize that they're out of ideas, and they have money and they need to do something with the money, or feel the need to do something with the money. It's unbelievable in my eyes that a video game developer would have at least 2 or 3 ideas. I'm not going to call them actually good ideas, but ideas nonetheless for the next video game that they want to design. So the idea that Super Hot would not need every single penny that they have towards the development of their next game is a bad concept. And frankly, I think all corporations should be forced and encouraged to sit on more cash and just save it for a rainy day. And they don't do that for many reasons, but it wouldn't. I think it should happen that way. I'm just going to do this. Safety play. There we go. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. A Hat in Time for the Switch launches October 18th. So, probably not going to get around to playing A Hat in Time before October 18th happens. Yeah. Well, definitely I'm not going to get it on my channel. At a certain point, though, we're going to get dangerously close to very little to no content airing for November.
A shift.
I am going to have to, at some point, start to actually focus on making content. And I think I definitely am approaching that feeling. That mentality. I think I'm starting to get ready to play Torchwood and Torchlight and start playing that. That might be the only game we play for November, and we might just double up on episodes there. But yeah, I'm starting to feel the itch to get back to playing games. It'll be interesting to play that game and not have a lot to say episode to episode, but whatever. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Sci-Hi 2 High Summer, which I like the animation here and everything. Unfortunately, this is a text-based game, and we're starting to see a few of these text-based games come back to Steam. So if there was some level of text-based games not being allowed on Steam, nobody ever complained about their game not being allowed on Steam, and they've clearly stopped that level of censorship because they're coming back. My guess is that people eventually just gave up on trying to make text-based games because they're not ever going to sell, and that's pretty obvious. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article for the PS4. Where are we? Where is my mouse cursor? For the PS4 and the PS Vita, the romance visual novel Amane is coming to the PS4 on November 28th in Japan. Also the Vita, another visual novel. Yeah, we're still kind of in a waiting zone as far as whether we think whether I think the reason that a couple of the most recent visual novels have been released on Steam censored is because something Steam did, or if it's because of some other reason. Oh man, I was short 1. Was there anything I could have done? Yeah. If I had played this the second time, instead of playing +1/+1, I would have won.
A natural mistake.
I was 1 mana short. And now this guy's just gonna attack and win. I guess, though, the fact that that's coming to the PS4 and Vita in Japan makes me start to wonder if PlayStation has started to split between Japan and the rest of the world as far as where it's going to censor and where it isn't. That would be the next spin on this, is if Sony of Japan says no, that game is coming out uncensored, and then Sony Interactive Entertainment in California says no, that game has to be censored. We'll see who overrules who. Technically, Sony of Japan is the boss. Next, we have a Gematsu article. Persona 5 Royale screenshots. I haven't been covering a lot of the hype articles on Persona 5 Royale. There's been a few hype articles on a few games that are so big and so obvious that we didn't really need to cover them, but I'll mention this. It's due out for the PS4 October 31st in Japan and 2020 in the West. Also, there is a Danganronpa Reloaded for the PlayStation that I don't think is on PC, and maybe Danganronpa Reloaded is just Danganronpa 1 and 2, so there's no reason for there to be a reloaded version on Steam. But if there is a difference in the versions, I would like to own the PC, the reloaded version on PC, I think, not knowing the differences between those versions. So that does point out a need for some more research before I actually started buying all of the Danganronpa games, and I think I already own the first game, so I'm probably at least a little bit committed to what I've already done. Let's see. Here.
For the wild.
There. Next, Tech Raptor has an article, Gravity Ghost Deluxe Edition Review, You're Dead, Here's a Hug. Let's see. Gravity Ghost being a physics-based gravity game. Let's see what they reviewed it as. They gave it an 8.5. Great. Gravity Ghost Deluxe Edition is a bittersweet game about acceptance and a relaxing platformer to boot. Also, it has a real good fox. Pros, charming story, great visuals and audio, relaxing gameplay and fun chases. Cons, occasionally iffy art and some lame puzzles. Or all the puzzles are lame, perhaps. That's more an accurate description of what it's saying. Yeah, I just need to keep this thing alive. That's all I really need to do. Play this next turn. Play this next turn. So yeah, Gravity Ghost sounds like it's a good game. Well, that didn't work.
We hunger for vengeance.
Here. Tech Raptor has an article here. Epic Games Store. August update adds improved Humble integration and more cloud saves. Of course, the cloud saves immediately failed. So, I mean, we're going through these stories backwards, but on August 15th that this article came out, they're talking about it adding Hyperlight Drifter with cloud saves, and it failed immediately, right out the door. Like, no attempt whatsoever to make sure things would work on a test server or anything like that. I mean, that you can't really describe it as any other case than that. They clearly did not experiment or test or make sure anything would work before they thought they could just get it done in a day. And that's just not a company you want to do business with, frankly. In comparison, would you want to hire me to fix your servers? Probably not if you have a better option. Not unless you're going to give me a lot of time. It probably would take me 3 weeks to figure out how is your crazy server set up and working, and more than likely I'd probably just have to build a new one and in a test bed scenario and have it spun up. But yeah, if you want me to get something done and make sure it works for potentially 100,000 plus people, let's just assume, pick a number there, that's less likely to actually happen. I cannot really guarantee that level of quality or consistency or safety. There we go. Not in 1 day's time. It would take me weeks, if not months, to get the Epic Store to a place where I'd like it to be, because you have a lot of server backend integrations and you've got a lot of storefront integrations, and one assumes that most of that is going to be custom code. Could I make something like the Epic Store or the Steam Store? Probably, in theory, eventually, yes. But it's gonna take a while.
Got one. Got one. Nuts to you.
There we go.
My hand is too full.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Rogue Rocks, which is just a low-effort asteroid game. We've seen these consistently. They never seem to really stop. Maybe I'll get lucky in 1 week. Won't see a game like this. It's discounted to $3.49, English with full audio, allegedly. Notice they've recommended Downwell. People like Downwell too. That's the part that surprises me. I think more than most is that there are these games out there that people liked, and still I did not have fun with them. So I guess that just means I have opinions and I'm more picky than just as picky as probably most people are with likes and dislikes. But it does always feel a little weird to be outside of the realm of what the average person feels. Alright. This. And this. And
Got one.
let's see. This.
Nuts to you. Got
This
one.
guy is stretching this game out, but I don't think it's gonna save him. Next we have a game on Steam called Saturday of the Piercing Screams. I guess I have to applaud the crazy name. That sounds like something you would give to a black metal, death metal band, not the name of a game. Inspired by true events, Unfortunately, this just looks like a terrible, low-effort platforming game, for lack of a better term. It looks like it's probably a frustration game. Also, you have this 3D animation that pops up in this video just for no reason. It doesn't seem like it's in the game at all. So it's $2.54, English only. It does not look like it's a quality product. Let's hit this. And then hit this. And this.
For the wild. Job's done.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Cyber Outrun. I feel like I've seen way too many Outrun clones on Steam. Now, in theory though, this looks good, so it's probably an asset flip game, but it'd be hard to tell the difference. So I guess I need to put this on the follow list and see if anybody actually likes it. But yeah, I am running into a fatiguing motion with Outrun clones that look all the same. This is $2.24 discounted. It's English and Turkish. I'll put it on the follow list, see what happens. Alright. There we go.
I'm almost out of cards.
This guy is stretching it out terribly, but
It's time to test your metal.
unless he's got some strategy. I guess he does have a bit of a strategy here. Where
I'm
he's
almost out of cards.
drawing the same card over and over again. Well, I guess he did have a strategy. I don't know what he just did there, but it did a lot of damage to me, like 25 damage. Whatever, moving on, we have a Gematsu article. Arcade-style arena first-person shooter Demon Pit has been announced for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. So we're starting to get announcements, not great announcements, when it's just like things that look uninteresting like this, that look like a Quake clone, and visual novels, which, depending on whether a visual novel is good or not, drastically changes my opinion on my level of excitement on those game things. Actually, you'd be pretty hard-pressed to announce a visual novel that isn't based on some kind of anime that already exists that would catch my attention, because I just wouldn't know. And if a game does come out based on a video game, an anime, it tends not to be a visual novel at that point. It tends to be a RPG MMO type thing. Sword Art Online, Dot Hack being great examples of that. On some occasions you'll see visual novels like Steins Gate go the opposite direction and become anime, which then makes Steins Gate as a visual novel more interesting to play. But nobody goes the other direction, it seems.
Mummy needs 5 more.
And I guess that makes a lot of sense, because let's face it, who's gonna pay to have more writing done in the visual novel when that writing could be much better used in the next season of the anime? Or make a visual novel that just tells the exact same lines of dialogue and story that you saw in the anime, with only slight alterations or perhaps a few multiple paths. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Unity has launched 2 new classroom tools to help teach programming. Let's see, called Create with Code and Unity Teach to help teach game design and computer science. That's interesting. Let's see. Create with Code is a comprehensive course aimed at educators that want to teach computer science using Unity, while Unity Teach is being pitched as a community-focused support network for teachers looking to connect and learn from each other. Unity claims the Create for Code course includes everything educators will need to teach effective programming, including training modules and quizzes aimed at helping students learn how to build their own Unity projects from scratch in C#. Oh, I guess they're up to C# now. My education in C++, Moreland C++, running, I believe, on DOS, is probably completely useless nowadays. But the foundation of it is pretty much the same as C#, somewhat. So that would be cool, certainly. I can certainly understand why you would want kids to learn Unity too. Also, learning C#, learning to program in Unity will get you really, really close to whatever you would program in if you actually did become a video game programmer. Now, I think it is fair to make this statement, and it's not going to be a pleasantly or well-received statement. Should every single school be teaching 30 kids at least to program video games? The answer to that is no.
Mommy needs 5 more minutes.
Let's just assume for a second that there is 1,000 schools in the United States. I imagine that's an inaccurate number. I imagine it's closer to 3,000-4,000 schools alone. 3,000-4,000 schools, but we'll just say 1,000. Keep the number small. 1,000 schools times 30 students, that's one class teaching computers in each school, which is not accurate either, would be giving you 30,000 new video game programmers every year graduating. That's not reasonable. It just is not reasonable to believe that is going to work, and that there is going to be enough industry to support even 30,000, even a small estimate of 30,000 kids who know how to program video games or need to program anything at all. The numbers are wrong there. On the other hand, if you're going with the Andrew Yang idea that everybody's going to get universal basic income, I don't know why I gave that to Andrew Yang. That's existed way before he did. If you go with the universal basic income idea, and everybody that graduates in a few years is not really going to need to get a job unless they just want to, then maybe it keeps people out of trouble. A lot of, and this is probably going to be an inflammatory statement, a lot of inner city minority youth get into rapping, and that for the most part does keep them out of trouble, making rap songs that basically will never sell and nobody will ever sign them and get them a publishing deal or anything like that. But it kind of works that way. It kind of doesn't, because the unfortunate incident with the rapping is that quite often there's a level of aggression that comes along with it, and a level of thug mentality that comes along with it, that encourages, or at least basks in that. So, like, I don't mind if the youth want to be gangster rappers as long as they know it's all fake, but I think too many people are actually living the lifestyle, and that's a problem. Certainly with any music, TV, acting things, there's a lot of negative influences such as drug use. means exploitation, which you have to be aware of too. But yeah, there is something needed if you go with the universal basic income concept. There is something needed to keep people busy. I was getting druid victories, and now I'm really not. Moving on, we have this game, Dark DARQ. This is a game that was going to go on the following list. It's already on the following list, so I don't really need to say anything more. It's very positive. Frankly, at this point, putting it on the wish list is the better move, and we'll move it off the follow list because it satisfies the requirements. It's got a positive review. It's got more than 20 verified purchase reviews. Yeah, this can just be on the wish list. I hope that is not an indication that I'm going to start seeing a lot of duplicate things. I don't think I do have a lot of that, but maybe. Tech Raptor's review, Rad reviewed The Nuking of Isaac, which is a reference to the Binding of Isaac roguelike game. Let's see. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and see how Tech Raptor liked Rad. Rad being the Double Fine game that's not really getting advertised as much as it probably should, considering Microsoft owns Double Fine. But whatever. So they played it on PC, on Steam. They gave it a 7.0. Very good. Why is a 7.0 considered very good at this point? That makes no sense. Rad is a unique Double Fine, has that unique Double Fine touch. I'm not sure I like the unique Double Fine touch these days. While combat wavers between difficult and unsatisfying, mutations and exploration create the one more run magic. It's a solid experience that will satisfy any post-apocalyptic enthusiast. Pros: great world building, fun mutations, optimized movement, satisfying exploration, side quest, watching children transform into weird mutants. Cons are unsatisfying melee combat, mutations, trivialized boss fights, bank, arbitrary roped off, repetitive combat narrator. So this is what the game looks like. It's a weird third-party isometric perspective, which I think kind of kills what you should have if you're making a Binding of Isaac clone. So I don't know. I'll think about putting Rad on the follow list, but I am iffy. Also, I'm not even sure it's on Steam. Let's see. Via Steam. Yes, it is on Steam. Well, Rad, R-A-D, is not in the top listings on Google. So I had to search Rad Game to get to it. So it's a bad name, to say the least. So yeah, here's the game. It's not out yet. I'll put it on the follow list. I think it deserves that much, but I'm not really sure on this one. I really am not sure. There might be something to it. There might not. See, I feel like what they take from Binding of Isaac is you get a lot of items that do change your appearance or change how you interact in Binding of Isaac, but the fact that it changed your appearance was never really the main selling point there. Where in Rad it feels like that is the main selling point, is that they've just put way too much effort in having cut and paste limbs and elements. This is so heavily inspired by Binding of Isaac, or it feels that way at least, that I kind of don't feel like it's going to compare well. I think you have a good chance that a lot of negative reviews are going to say, I played the Binding of Isaac and this is no Binding of Isaac, or this takes the wrong lessons from Binding of Isaac.
What shall we hunt?
Let's see. Go ahead and attack here. And attack here. But yeah, I'll put it on the follow list and we'll see what happens. Next, TechRaptor has an article, Shenmue 3 backer trial version. Details have been announced. This seems to be a demo that was available to backers of the original Kickstarter. It seems like it's probably something that they promised, or something that they are replacing to replace a promise that they're not going to actually fulfill. Shenmue 3 is in a weird position, certainly, because they became an Epic Store exclusive, where they've really peeved off a lot of their fans and their backers. So I don't know. I don't know what they could do to really bring people back, but announcing a demo is not enough, and they've killed, I think, most of their hype. So any announcement is not good enough anymore. I mean, in a weird way, this might, I was going to call this the year of bankruptcies, because I expected to see a lot of bankruptcies, and we have seen a lot of bankruptcies in the video game world this year. But frankly, I'm starting to wonder if this isn't going to be the year of epic failures, in a double meaning, that yes, this will be the year in which a bunch of epic games specifically fail, or Epic causes the entirety of the video game community to not succeed in a profitable way this year.
For the wild.
I'm having trouble maintaining a field playing the mage. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Rogue Singularity, which I think is maybe a low effort asset flip robot platformer. I think this is a Chinese game, if I was to guess. $14.99, a bunch of languages. I guess it's not Chinese. 26 achievements.
We must cleanse the sun.
It looks like it's a 3D platformer where you make a custom robot game. It actually looks like it might have enough here to be a game. I guess this deserves a follow. Barely. I would say just barely. But there might be something to this. Oh, or it might just turn out that there's only like 10 levels, and then it's not really worth the money of $14.99. That is certainly asking a lot. Alright. This,
I have too many minions.
alright, I screwed that up. Needed to have done this twice, and then a third time for that.
that minion's turn.
Come on, just let me win. Just give up and let me win. I'm whining. Next, we have a game on Steam called Inner, which looks like a dark screenshot asset flip horror game of some sort. It really looks like nothing at all. Screenshots seem to be showing just screenshots of the video, and that's it. 99 cents, English only, 5 achievements. Nothing visually attractive or interesting there, so. Come on, come on.
For the wild.
Got it down to 9. See, Gamatsu has an article. Rock of Ages 3 Make and Break has been announced for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. I didn't like Rock of Ages 1, so I never played 2, but if you did like the Rock of Ages series, I imagine this is more of the same. I feel like they had a concept there. It's just the way it was implemented wasn't interesting to me. And they certainly had a unique artistic Monty Python-esque style that they were going for. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Beekeeper, where you're literally a beekeeper with some not very polished, low effort animation. I've watched a few videos of people trying to raise bees. It's kind of a very long-term process, it seems, where you don't nitpick and do a lot of action on a day-to-day basis as a beekeeper. So I don't know how you make a video game around that, and this does not look interesting. It's $8.99, English and Polish. I think what we would kind of quickly find, one more druid victory, is that most beekeepers spend a lot of time saving and rescuing beehives from people's houses and offices and such.
I must protect the
I wouldn't be surprised if that's 25 out of 30 days of your work is you're just saving beehives and transferring them to your farms, hoping that they'll survive and continue to make honey. Next, we have a game on Steam called Hot Shot Burn, which looks like it's a player versus player, top-down twin-stick shooter game. Looks a little bit more polished than your average one of these, which we see on almost a weekly basis. But it will be a multiplayer emphasis game, so I have no interest in that. It's early access for $14.99. It's multiplayer only, actually. So this is not a game I would follow anyways. But, you know, at least they're trying here. I wouldn't say they're trying extremely hard by making a multiplayer only game that has no story and doesn't really differentiate itself from thousands and thousands of other games that we've seen like this. Well, somehow I got all the cards that are late game at the beginning. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. For the PS4 and Switch, Wargroove is launching this fall in a limited run. Or is this a limited run? No, published game? No, actually it isn't. Is there anything else to say there? Not really. I heard a lot of mainstream video game journalists say they liked Warcraft for about a week, and that's pretty much all they can ever say is for about a week they're interested in something, and then they move on to the next thing and potentially never finish the game, even for all you know. Next, Gematsu has an article, Dreadout 2 gameplay teaser trailer, survive the dread one more time. I feel like I saw a game like this and I thought it was just a low effort game. Let's see what this trailer looks like. There very possibly was a Chinese game that was something similar to this. So it looks like you're playing as either Japanese or Korean high school girl. Although I would guess Korean by the color palette. This feels like a Korean horror game. Yeah, let's see, what can we finally do something? No, we've got nothing. Alright, so do that. And then in the turn. So it seems like it has a cell phone camera aspect where you're catching ghosts, and snapping the ghost is defeating them. Which I guess that the series that concept is based on, in which there was a magic camera that was capturing the ghost, has kind of run its course. I don't think I've seen any new announcement for one of those games, and I feel like there should have been one, maybe in a year or two. Maybe we'll hear a new announcement. Although in this case, you're also axing to death the character.
I wonder.
Let's see. Digital Happiness is the developer.
Time waits for no one.
Finally, I have a minion I can play. This has been ridiculous.
For the wild.
Alright, so here's the Steam page. I'll put this on the follow list. Clearly, this is not the game I had seen before. There's Dread Eye. How do I have so many of these games in my library? When did I buy these games? These must have been a Humble Bundle at some point. Like, I own everything except for the demo and this VR game. Well, I guess there's no reason for me not to play this. I'm gonna have to remind myself that I already own these games and play them next October. Let's see. And then Dread Eye seems to be a VR horror game, which requires VR. And at this rate, it's rated mostly positive, so I think there's a logical... this is mostly positive. This DLC is positive. This is very positive. Wow. So it's a sad statement, frankly, on how many games I have, that I can own two games that are available from a series and not even know that I own them.
For the wild.
Well, that's something I'm gonna have to make a note for, definitely. That there's this horror series I should play. Which, yeah, also gives me a horror series to play. I also wouldn't be in a terrible position if I tried the concept again next year. Having a Halloween in February type concept, something where where it's 6 months away from or close to 6 months away from the original, from October. Alright. This. And this. And in the turn. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Updated Descent is caught in limbo as Little Orbit allegedly won't publish it. I did not even remember that a new Descent game was in development. Descent 2019 was also known as Descent Underground. Let's see what the update is to this story. Why is the update at the bottom? Update: after reaching out to Little Orbit, we were informed that they are unable to provide any official comment on Eric Peterson's statement at this time, but will reach back when they were able to. Update 2: when being asked on the current status of the game and more information on Peterson's comment, Descent gave TechRaptor the following response: the game is pretty much done. We're trying to work out an equitable deal with the publisher to finish it completely and get it on all platforms. Stay tuned for more information. So what this sounds like to me is a instance of them trying to negotiate for more money, because they're not really done. They're almost done after the publisher has probably invested a lot. Scrolling back up here, we have a quote: they constantly ask for changes. They don't understand the project or the market, which is probably a situation that happens a lot with game developers and publishers. Theoretically, the publisher is supposed to understand the market, and that's kind of the point, but it doesn't mean that's always true. Alright, is there anything else I can do? There's... okay. We need to do 6 damage here. So this and this and this and this.
For the wild.
This, this, and this. This is dangerous. I'm down to 5 health. Certainly.
Of course it's the right way.
It probably isn't very impactful to me, seeing how I had forgotten completely that the game was even in development.
What shall we hunt?
But probably sucks for some people. This next story is interesting and caught my eye visually, definitely. For the PS4, Vita, and Switch, a visual novel called Pantsu Hunter Back to the 90s is coming out on August 28th. And I don't know if there's been a previous game in the series called Pantsu Hunter, and this is a continuation of Back to the 90s, or what. But this is early 90s anime style. So, often you'll hear me talk about the moe anime style where the characters are well out of a human proportion. They're drawn shorter and not human at all, really, and more to look, often interpreted as younger, more to look somewhat similar to younger characters. That issue being a sidestep. In the 90s, a lot of anime is animated like this, and I kind of miss it. Of course, this is going to be a a lewd game in which you're going to run around and see girls in bikinis, and pantsuit means underwear, not bikini bottoms particularly. Even so, the entire focus of the game, I imagine, will be wandering around trying to collect and find pantsuit. And I imagine it will be man, I was too slow. It'll be lewd. Let's see. Yeah, they're saying specifically don't expect any nudity or sex scenes on the console version, but it's more recommended for adult players anyways. And I lost. Apparently this game is already on Steam. It came out January 17th, 2019, and I totally forgot about it. It is tagged nudity, but yeah, I kind of miss this art style. I hate that it's mixed though, so I'm gonna do some more research on it. It probably is nothing more than a cheap adventure visual novel game going with a different art style. There would be nothing wrong with the West stealing this art style, frankly, since it's been abandoned by the Japanese anyways. So if this was the new West animation style, that I wouldn't really have a problem with it. $8.99 this game is full English audio, but no Japanese support at all, so you kind of also know that this is probably not even a Japanese developer that made the game, and they don't have anything else in development on their storefront. So yeah, I'm gonna do some more research and read the reviews and see what the problems are that people are having with. The fact that it's mixed and not kind of a breakout success goes to show that the Moe art style is what people embrace and want, unfortunately. And an old guy like me who watched the 90s ones when he was young is not the target audience or not the main audience anymore, which has to happen certainly for any genre whatsoever, is you have to embrace and grow your following with a new generation of interested parties.
To you.
Let's see. Gematsu has an article, Ys 9 Monstrum Nox third web commercial cutscene. This is another one of those games that has gotten kind of consistent hype articles. So I've not been paying a lot of attention to them. But yeah, development and hype for the next Ys game is in development and looks interesting, to say the least. I'm trying to wrap my head around why I'm losing so much. Like, it feels like my strategy is good. It just kind of feels like everybody else has better strategies nowadays. You can't just like fill the board. Which maybe that is the trick, is to not spend all of your mana filling the board and then run out of things to do by the 5th turn. Next we have a game on Steam called Cult that looks like it's a really zoomed out graphics game. The vast majority of this video was not showing the actual gameplay section. This looks visually terrible. It's $6.99, I think, English full audio. Yeah, nothing there to catch my eye. Right.
Toil and trouble.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Mythic Pearls: The Legend of Tirnanog, which this looks like it is a Zumba clone. No interest in that. 25% off for $2.99. English full audio. Yep. Only for the people who are tired of playing the original Zumba. Gamer Sutra has an article. The Xbox head cloud gaming is inevitable, but quote, years and years away from the mainstream. I think that's an accurate statement. Just because of the issue of just having and attempting to have good internet in the United States can be a nightmare scenario or an impossible goal. Although Google Stadia is going to try and see if it make it happen. Next, Gematsu has an article. Good Shepherd Entertainment and Ace Team announced an open-world survival adventure game called The Eternal Cylinder for consoles and PCs. So we've got a new announcement. I think we'll probably stop seeing announcements in about a month's time. Announcements for anything that's coming out before 2020, at least. This video seems to just really show a bunch of animals that kind of mutate, and that's kind of it. I'm not sure what else I could really take from that trailer. Just play this twice. See, next we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian characters. It says Magic Ganglia or Ganglia. I don't know how you would not pronounce that Ganglia, frankly. Interesting video here, but I think this is probably a Chinese game trying to hide the fact that it's a Chinese game. And I don't think the game actually looks anything like what I'm saying here. That's a very non-representative video. What the game looks like, if I was to guess, is it's a Chinese, mostly text-based RPG experience here. You can see they fast-forwarded the video to show you through the character creation, but the actual gameplay is just kind of this boring grid-based location placement. English was not supported. $13.99, Chinese only. This is an example of a game that might actually have really good story, but you're very dangerously close to a text-based RPG that you're playing, and that isn't up to a modern video game standards by any means. So there's a consideration that needs to happen there of how could this be sold in today's day and age for $13.99 when that's a game that looks like it would come out from the 80s and should be sold for 69 cents, really. Next we have a game on Steam called Flowscape. I feel like I've seen something very similar to this, and while it does seem like it is a kind of interesting, dumbed down version of the Unity 3D model placement software, or Blender, or some kind of software like that, I don't see a game here. Not really. this feels like this is probably a tech demo that somebody has put on Unity and then other people are taking and trying to sell as a video game. And I've seen a game very much like that once before. This is $14.99, English only, Glowscape, not something that interests me. Yeah, I'm gonna lose. I really can't do anything until I get minions on the field. I should probably, if I want to win with the strategies, I should probably just not play for the first few turns until I have all of my minions on almost a full hand, then play a bunch of minions on the ground. Or just play like one minion and see how they defeat that one minion if they use any spells or anything. Because like, now that you do something like this, you can then do something like this, and then do something like this, and do that, and then lose anyways. Gamma Sutra has an article, how moving from 2D to 3D shaped the design of Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain 1 did not look like an interesting game to me. Risk of Rain 2 looked like a slightly more interesting game to me. This is a interesting article. I imagine if you ever plan on developing a game, really don't have time to read it myself though. I'm 50-50 on whether I'd actually ever want to develop a video game or not. I doubt I'll ever get an actual opportunity to. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Frame of Reference that seems like you have this dice that kind of measures something and then that affects its size.
I must protect the wild.
Or you're rolling the dice to say how big something is. There's a game definitely in development similar to this, but I'm not sure this is an actual game or if this is more of a tech demo. Because it feels like you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And nothing here feels interesting or well designed. It feels like you're just in a small area messing with things. $4.99 English. I think I can skip this because it just does not grab my attention. Alright, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take as many minions as possible. And see, we're not too far from being done, and we haven't even hit the Americas account, so this is probably going to be our last game on the Asian account too. We'll just go look at the Americas account and play one game, and that'll be it for the stream. Next we have a game here that's just all Asian characters. It looks like it's a Chinese StarCraft, Warcraft, Dota style game, if the screenshots want to load. I haven't really been running into that problem for a while. Maybe there's a little bit of tower defense elements in it too. But otherwise it's not something I can follow because English is not supported. It's $9.59 discounted, Chinese only. I doubt it's a particularly good Chinese game. Although good Chinese game is a relative term. Next we have a game called Crawling of the Dead, which looks like another asset flip dungeon crawler game. What would sell me on a game like this? Like, if you were going to make a dungeon crawler and you're not going to throw in like anything lewd or anime to catch my attention visually, it's going to just look like a Tolkien-esque dungeon. It's going to have goblins and elves and ogres and monsters and maybe some zombies. I don't know how you fix that. My guess is you should probably have some bright luminescence like creatures if there was a lot of creatures that were creating their own light because they spend their entire life in darkness, like sea lanterns, there might be something like that concept. If you had elves that were brightly colored and very well animated, and you were fighting against elves or gnomes, and you had skeletons that looked particularly realistic or grotesque, that might catch my attention too. But inherently, a dungeon crawler is a low effort game, so the visuals are always low effort. So you always get in this catch-22 of it not looking anywhere close to interesting. $19.99 discounted. This game is full English audio, it claims, and I have exactly zero interest in it. So here, I'm on somebody else's Twitter. Why did this tweet come out? The co-founder of Blizzard, okay, Mike Morhaime, the co-founder of Blizzard Entertainment, retweeted somebody who is looking for like a GoFundMe because of a medical issue. It's odd to see the CEO of Twitter certainly retweeting something like that, and I don't know what else you can really say about that. The problem is, if you do that for anybody and you have any kind of presence on Twitter, you're going to get a lot of people certainly asking you to do that, and there's a danger of flooding your audience or telling your audience things they're not interested in. Mike Morhaime, the co-founder of Blizzard, has 107.4 thousand followers, so him retweeting somebody's GoFundMe is certainly giving it a boost. But it's not really video game news, so other than saying that happened, there's really nothing to mention there, and I have no interest personally on promoting a GoFundMe for somebody I don't know and can't possibly therefore trust. And frankly, I think charity starts better at home with things you can actually confirm and ensure are legitimate and such. There's a lot of scams out there, a lot of scammers out there. Let's see. Both of these death rattled would summon something else. If I transform it to something, it won't activate its death rattle. Let's see. Apex Legends, I believe, has some updates coming out, and they put out a article talking about that. I think I don't even know how to point you to this article, frankly. It's written so small, and I don't care about Apex Legends, so I guess I'll leave it to just Apex Legends put out an article. You're gonna have to work to find out where that article is. Apologies for that. +1 and rush. Okay. Kill that. And transform that. And then attack here. And attack here. And then return. Gamatsu has an article for the PC, PS4, and Switch. AI, the Somnium Files, victim Rinju Okiura screenshots. So this is a Persona-esque 3D JRPG game, I believe, that is in development, and I know AI, the Somnium Files, has been in development from Spike Chunsoft, but I've kind of forgotten everything about it. Inherently, this is the reason why I stopped focusing or looking at or talking about the games that are always trying to get hyped. Victory, finally. Just because when something gets announced, particularly by a Japanese developer, you're in this situation where it's going to be several years before, or a year plus before the game actually comes out, and you're just going to get all these hype articles getting you super excited for a game that probably won't even be worth the excitement. Let's move over to the Americas account now. Probably going to just play a couple of games at most, and like, you spend way too much of your mental time and energy. I would much prefer to be in the situation I'm in right now, where I'm not remembering these games that I probably should remember, because they're still far from ever being finished. Alright, now, next we've got win 2 more games with the Rogue Warrior, win 3 Tavern Brawls. I definitely don't want to do that, so I'm going to re-roll that. That puts us in a position where we need to win a Warrior game, and then 5 games any mode. So ideally we'll get many Warrior victories really quickly, but I doubt it. Next we have a game on Steam called The Adventures of Sullivan, which looks like a platformer shooter game that's not animated quite well enough to make me want to play it. Although it does seem like it has some smooth movement, it seems like it has some pretty unsmooth animations. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't think I really have much to say about this kind of game. $4.99 English. Looks like it's probably an achievement game too. So yeah, we'll leave that off. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article. Activision Blizzard names David Messenger the new chief marketing officer. So Activision Blizzard has lightly shuffled its executive pool, and now notably bringing David Messenger in to serve as the first chief marketing officer in the process. Alright, we'll see if he can save Activision Blizzard, which is pretty much falling apart at the seams at the moment. It's gonna be a big turnaround. Also worth mentioning, if you stream, OBS put out a reminder to download the latest version that was released June 15th, because the automatic updater is broken. So that's something I guess to keep an eye on or be aware of. TechRaptor has the same article. Doom console ports Bethesda.net login is now optional, which, yay, I suppose. Yay, you can actually play the game from several decades ago without making a login to Bethesda.net accounts. Gamma Sutra has the same article. Epic Games Store rolls out more cloud save options and a flashier store pages. No real talk about the store pages being flashier, as the cloud save support failed miserably on launch. Like, just the worst thing that could possibly happen. Really. Next we have a game on Steam called Warfork, which looks like it's an asset flip first person shooter.
Runs out on me.
Is there anything here that would really make me think of anything else? No. Just kind of looks like a Quake clone, which looks kind of fine. Better than a lot more than I've seen, but not still good enough to make me really want to play it. It's early access, free to play, multiplayer only, English only, full audio. Not sure how they plan on making any money there, since it's free to play with nothing else.
Time runs out on me.
So this is a bomb shuffle deck as far as the warlock goes. So everything I have here kind of centers around the idea that I want to play the thing to shuffle more bombs into the hand.
Somebody order a bomb.
Time runs out on me.
TechRaptor has an article here. You may be able to upgrade your Nintendo Switch to the newest model. According to PSA from Reddit user, if you purchased the Nintendo Switch after July 17, 2019, you may be able to upgrade it for free to the newest model. However, he also added that other regions may not have this offer available, so it depends on your location. Other users have also reached out to Nintendo to confirm whether this is possible and confirm that to be the case. So if you're bummed that you got your Switch right before the new model was announced, here's a chance to bump it up a notch and enjoy an extra battery life. It also seems, and I don't know, it seems like you can do it through GameStop too. It also seems like they have committed to not release any updated versions of the games, so that the new version, which can run a little bit faster, will not actually run any faster. So it is going to be the same experience on the new Switch as the old Switches. I imagine they will give up on that rather quickly,
Get behind me.
and just try not to make that obvious or announce it that way. They don't want to disenfranchise or irritate the early adopters. Next we have a game on Steam called Block Grand Horror, which clearly is a low-effort Roblox zombie game. This is $1.99 English only. I'm kind of glad we don't see too many of these games anymore, but it kind of doesn't matter one way or the other. Like,
Light the fuses!
yeah, it really doesn't matter if a low effort game looks like Roblox or if a low effort game actually looks like a real game. I kind of prefer it look like Roblox so I could easily dismiss it, but you can never really guarantee that.
The pen is mightier.
Next we have a game on Steam that's an Asian character called Memories. This was probably a Chinese game through full motion video. It's really tall video too. Like taller than you would expect even if this was a cell phone port. Taller than what you would expect even if this was a camera. So I don't understand what kind of lens you would have even used to make something that tall. Yeah, so it seems like this is a simplistic first person full motion video puzzle game. There might be something here if it supports English. It's $1.19 discounted, Chinese full audio. I'm gonna give it a chance and put it on the follow list. It's mostly positive already, so like I'm willing to kind of think that through and say, yeah, maybe there's a chance there. Let's see. Yeah, I have about 5 more pages. TechRaptor has an article. THQ Nordic announces a collector's edition and atomic edition of Biomutant. Biomutant, I don't think a game that particularly is catching a lot of people's attention yet. But we shall see. I guess when it comes out. I might be confusing Biomutant for a different game too. Because there was this game that looked like it was a first-person shooter, but that came out and was actually a strategy game. And I don't think it was Biomutant, but it looks kind of like Biomutant. With anthropomorphic animal humanoid things.
I can wait no longer. Taste my blade.
Let's see. 4 more damage. Famitsu has a article for the PC and Switch. Fairy Tale-like rhythm game Wonder Parade is coming to the Switch and PC. Which looks interesting, although it's a rhythm game, so it's probably not something I could play. Is there a video here to kind of see how more it works? Just a bunch of animals in a marching band. Yeah, that seems like way more kid-friendly than most rhythm games. Of course, the level of difficulty is going to be the main limiting factor on a kid-friendly attempt at rhythm games, and I guess the music selection might also be a big issue. But yeah, that might be closer to my my skill level as somebody who's not likely to be very successful at rhythm games. Right. So just draw a bomb and I win. That's all that's gonna happen. Otherwise, I could try several things. Let's see.
You win.
Yeah, I don't think I need to even play another game. I'll just have to do a lot of stuff off screen. So I'll need to get a Rogan Warrior and 4 more victories on the main account. But after I get this Rogan Warrior, I can play this on single player mode and get those victories a little bit easier. I think a similar case in the European account. And so let's just finish this last bit of news and then that'll be it for this stream. TechRaptor has an article, Sacred Sword Princess RPG reveals a new Kumbi character. Kumbi? This must be a Nutaku game. Yeah, it's a Nutaku game. Okay. So I forgot Sacred Sword Princess RPG was a Nutaku adult game. Moving on, we have This Was For You on Steam. Speaking of adult games, we I guess are still kind of in this point where we're really not seeing any, and it's starting to hit about the 3-week part. At this point where we haven't seen any full nudity, full sexual content game come out on Steam, or even be announced on Steam in early access, and that seems a little weird. As for this game, it's free and it's English full audio. It claims 8,000 words for a visual novel is actually pretty low. Should be about 40,000 words. This doesn't look quality. Now, we did see Senran Kagura Peach Ball come out a couple days ago, but I'm kind of leaving that as an exception because that was scheduled way in advance. Next, we have a game on Steam called Treehouse Avocado Mayhem, which this feels like this is more animated in the fluidity and actions, but this also feels like it is a Game and Watch concept that is being reused. There was a Game and Watch called Fireman where you were catching people jumping out of a burning building, and in this case they're catching avocados that fall out of a tree, and I think that's probably more of a meme than anything. Could I be interested in such a simplistic, what is basically a mini game, as its only gameplay mechanic? I think the answer is probably no. It's $2.99, it's English only. I think it's just too simplistic a gameplay concept to sell me on it, even though it is slightly more animated than you would normally expect, and there seems to be slightly more of a gameplay loop here. It also falls into the category of one of those old school repetitive styles of games where you are just going in circles, all doing the same thing over and over again. Finally, we have a game on Steam here called Pico Pico, and by the looks of it, you might think it's an anime adult game from the thumbnail, but it doesn't actually seem like it is. It seems like it's an actual platformer strategy, something closer to Shanti than anything else. It's from Degaisia, however you pronounce that, as a publisher, and that's a somewhat well-known publisher. It's early access for $8.99 English with subtitles. I'm gonna put it on the fall list. I think there might be a game here. This guy being the publisher of RPG Maker MV and some other games. I'm not sure any of which actually, well, a lot of these are on my wish list, so I can't really discount them that much, can I? I don't know what Pico actually means in Japanese. But whatever, I guess. I can't say much else than that. See, so that brings me to the Humble Bundle store. See if there's any new bundles. I doubt there would be. Nope. And then I guess I can just really quickly look on my Twitter feed. Since it's Friday, I doubt there's gonna be any more Twitter announcements or anything big video game news wise. Certainly a lot of big news happening, but that doesn't really mean video game news. And I guess it at this point it might not be a bad idea for video games just to try and lay low for a brief moment. Yeah, there's like 3 games that came out since the stream. We have this game called My Bike, which is clearly a low effort asset flip game for 59 cents. That's not going to make it to the fall list. We have a game called Fataline, which again, very tall, looks like a mobile port. Seems to be a half cell phone visual novel game. It's probably Chinese if I was to guess. Early access, $1.79. Chinese, 20 achievements, yeah. Still slightly better quality than most Chinese games, though. Keeping their limit and trying to do something within their range. And then this next game is Tag Sexual Content and Nudity. So there goes the reset of the timer, I guess, or maybe not. We have to argue on that point. We have here 9-9 episode 2 from Sekai Project as the publisher, Tag Sexual Content and Nudity, as a visual novel. The problem I think you run into is that if the thought is that they are censoring still visual novels or games that have Japanese girls in schoolgirl outfits, let's face it, they don't care what the Japanese guys wear. That's a schoolgirl outfit right there, but we may still be in that section where a lot of games are getting rejected, but this was approved because it's episode 2 and because it's Sekai project. So who knows? Full audio Japanese. I'll put this on the follow list and think about it. 9-9 probably a good series. I guess we could see if perhaps the 9-9 series before 9-9 episode 1. Lots of games here. How do we do this? 9-9 episode 2. Lists. New releases. Franchises. The 9-9 series. Here we go. Interesting how that split that like that. So how do you find 9-9 episode 1? Here it is. Very positive in its reviews. So at the risk of not being family friendly, I'll click on that link and see that that too is on the fall list, and it came out January 31st. Now, in a weird way, this might be on the follow list. The 9-9 series might be on the follow list because it's episodic, which you really don't want to say your visual novels are episodic. It's kind of assumed that you could at any point make a sequel, just like you can make a sequel to anything else. But giving it an episode number is unnecessary and kind of redundant. Alright, well, that's going to be it for the stream. We started late, we went long. I'm going to spend a lot more time certainly playing off screen. And then I'll spend the weekend either thinking about or actually starting to record some more video game footage, or finally finishing all the setup I want to do for my Linux server, which is boring at this point. I've spent too much time working and talking about it. That's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.